Wow. They said 500 people, but I didn't realise how many people that sort of looks like. As you can tell, I'm a little nervous. If everyone can just help me out for a moment. Make a fist. Just look at your fist and not me for a moment. Your fist is about the size of the primary tumour they found in my 6-year-old's belly. But before I get onto that, let's rewind a little bit and introduce my family. Beside me is my beautiful wife, Colleen. 15 years ago, we met at work. Being the shy IT geek I was, I quit that company and asked Colleen on a date via instant message. Before long, we were married and we had our first child, Oliver. Then we had Piper and our youngest, Violet. She's a daddy's girl. She gives the greatest cuddles. She's incredibly generous, sympathetic, and loving. We were a happy, normal family until about 2 years ago. That's when Violet started to get sick. Not too much. Usual kid stuff. I've got a headache, my tummy hurts, my legs ache. After a couple of months of visiting the GP, a few rounds of antibiotics, blood tests, she hadn't got worse, but she hadn't really got better either. So we pushed to the hospital and find out more. Diagnosis seemed to take forever. X-rays, ultrasounds, CT, MRI, bone scan, biopsy, bone marrow aspirate, MIBG scan. After the first week, we knew things weren't good. By the second week, Violet's condition had deteriorated. Always feeling sick in her tummy and head, consistent low-grade fevers, and her walking was affected because of the pain. Thursday, 12 November 2015, 2 p.m. The news you never want. Violet had primary tumour on her left adrenal gland extending through her abdomen and up her major vessels towards her heart. She had secondary sites in her skull, jaw, spine, legs. Her bone marrow was affected. Formal diagnosis, stage 4 high-risk neuroblastoma. We had no idea what that type of cancer was, but it's a solid malignant tumour that usually starts in the adrenal glands. It's the most common cancer for kids under 5, and more than half the kids present as stage 4. That evening, we were transferred to the paediatric oncology ward, 11B, bed 13. Reality hit. Chemo starts tonight. I remember just wanting to crawl into a hole, hug Colleen and Violet, and just hide. Feeling uneasy, not caring that family and friends want the latest update. The next few weeks were a blur. Colleen describes it as a reoccurring nightmare. Every morning she woke up momentarily forgetting. The reality would then hit and she'd go through the grieving process all over again. Violet got incredibly sick. Her much loved hair fell out and her appetite was gone, so she got a feeding tube, which was her lifeline throughout treatment. To make things easier, everything got a name for Violet. The feeding tube was called Pineapple, her central line was called Blueberry and Banana, and that primary tumour was called Mr. Weed. So let me explain. Blueberry and Banana were fed chemotherapy to make Mr. Weed sick and die. Violet's treatment included weekly blood tests, dressing changes, 7 cycles of chemo, a 9-hour surgery to remove Mr. Weed, and also her left kidney. A bone marrow transplant, a month of radiation, and 6 cycles of immunotherapy. The side effects of this were so volatile that a nurse was assigned to Violet for 10 hours a day while the drugs were administered. She had countless bags of blood and blood products, and she was readmitted a few times with sickness so severe that she was fed intravenously, so her stomach was bypassed. She's been scanned, poked, prodded more times than you could imagine. Violet spent about 20% of her life being treated for cancer, and over the 19 admissions and 125 nights, we learnt to keep routine and keep focused beyond treatment. Part of the routine was having Violet's favourite stuffed animal, Bilbina, the Bilby, at every procedure and every admission. The longest admission was in isolation for bone marrow transplant. During transplant, if a toy touches the floor, it must be taken away, washed at 70 degrees before it can come back. This takes time. For that very reason, a backup Bilby was knitted. Billy and Bilbina were separated during this time because it reduced the chance of both Bilbies touching the floor. To help take focus off treatment, Violet planned their wedding. On Sunday, the 15th of May 2016, I officiated the wedding of Billy and Bilbina in a garden ceremony at our home. Treatment was tough, but not as tough as some of the statistics. At one point, we were told Violet's chance of survival was 25%. She's got 60% chance of relapse and 90% chance of lifelong medical side effects. But it could be worse. 30 years ago, her chance would be 4%. So why the big jump? Research. The impact of children's cancer is huge. Colleen gave up her uni degree. My mum and dad gave up a lifelong trip around the world to come and look after the other kids. I took 6 months off work, and I'm blessed to work for a company that allows that. But I also cashed in on my shares, drew down on savings to make that happen. But there's many I met on the ward that aren't as blessed as that. I know dads that spent nights on the ward and then got up the next day and went to work. I know regional families that were split during treatment. And this is why I support Children's Cancer Institute. They do the research, not just in the lab, but actionable research. The Institute also understands they can't do it alone. The national and international collaboration I've seen is great, and the people are phenomenal. I did a tour of the lab a few months ago, and the passion and dedication shown by staff to solve children's cancer is amazing. So how's Violet now? Her treatment ended in January, and her disease has stabilised to a tiny part in her jaw. Scanxiety is a term we use to describe the anxiety felt coming up to a set of scans and tests. This kicks in every 6 weeks for us. That's when Violet's back at hospital for tests to look for signs of relapse. Last week was one of those weeks. And the results? This time, she's still stable. Violet is well, her hair is growing back, and her fatigue levels have dropped enough for her allowed to take Bilbina to school most days. She's like most 8-year-old kids. As a family, we're moving forward. We've sold our house, planning on building another and getting back to normal. I say normal, but it's not like the normal before. It's a new normal. Our lives are forever changed, and Violet will have to be monitored for the rest of her life. Violet plans to ring the bell later this year to finally say goodbye to cancer treatment and finally say goodbye to Mr. Weed. Thank you.